What is up, guys? Sam Rosen here with the off season. It's been a little bit, but we're starting off strong with some NFL predictions for the 2020-2021 season. I'm joined by Andrew, Carson, and Lucas. Sean will be joining us hopefully shortly. We're going to start off, obviously, week one. Anybody's thoughts on the AFC? North, South, East, or West? Doesn't really matter to me. Kind of rhymes, kind of a bar.
Go week by week. I think we should just go with the standings.
Yeah,
Standings?
like end of the season standings.
End of the season standings. All right. Weeks are irrelevant. Who do you guys have for winning the AFC North?
AFC North, I'll go ahead first. I got Baltimore 14-2, taking the division with ease. Number 2 seed in the AFC as a whole. I got Cleveland going 11-5. Had a rough season last time, but they'll bounce back with stronger chemistry. Pittsburgh 6-10 and Cincy 2-14. One of the worst teams in the league.
Mine's pretty similar except the middle two. I got the Ravens 13-3. I have the Steelers coming in second and also making the playoff in the 7th spot. I'm at 10-6. Then the Browns and the Bengals. I just really can't bet on the Browns anymore. They're disappointed year after year, so I'm not expecting anything different.
Lucas, do you have the Bengals coming in second?
No, Bengals are 2-14.
You had Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Bengals as well.
Yeah, surprisingly, I had very similar statistics to Carson. I had Baltimore 13-3, taking the division, getting the number 2 seed. I had Pittsburgh at 10-6, like Carson. I think with the Big Ben coming back, being focused and motivated to get back to where they were a few years ago, will ultimately help them. I think Cleveland, I still don't believe in. I think I jumped on the Cleveland bandwagon a bit last year, thinking they would do something, but just like every year, they disappoint. And finally, I have Cincinnati at 2-14. It's just tough. Joe Burrow is a great player, but he just doesn't have enough around him at the moment. I think they'll be a team to mess with in a couple of years, but they really need to build through the draft right now.
And another thing I want to point out with the Steelers, I think they'll have maybe number 3 defense in the league. They jumped up the leaderboards the standings last year with Minka Fitzpatrick. And I think only the Niners and the Patriots will have a better defense. And the Patriots might not, even with their recent losses of players.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is pretty solidified overall. Again, I'm going to be kind of acting in a host capacity, seeing as my predictions aren't here. But yeah, I mean, the Browns, a lot of us thought they'd be great this year. This past season, they weren't. And then I just saw that Njoku was also asking for a trade, so the team might kind of be crumbling apart. But again, more to come. I think with this season, we'll see how they play. If they're able to perform to any capacity. Maybe the band stays together, but honestly, it's looking pretty grim, and I think it will be an easy division for the Ravens.
Well, yeah, I think there's no doubt that the Ravens will win that division. I think it will be interesting to see. I think one of those teams is going to come out and be one of the wild card seeds, because it has been a significantly strong division in the past couple of years. I think looking at the Browns, I just can't really put all my trust into Baker Mayfield, especially after what we've seen of him when he plays against strong defenses like the 49ers, when they absolutely tear them apart. And I think it goes back to what we talked about, in one of our past videos, that he's really a one-look quarterback, and the Browns might actually have to move on from him. I think that's an early assumption, but if it continues in the way it's going right now, I just don't see them keep holding on to him when it gets to his 5th year of the contract.
All right.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about the Steelers being 10-6 according to you. Before I say that, I do want to say that in terms of my sleeper teams, I don't want to hop on the Burrow hype train, even if I don't even think there is one. But the way he played at LSU, if he could carry that, I could see them taking that second spot, especially because we don't really know for certain how the Browns and Pittsburgh are going to take. I could see them taking that second spot, but
Mhm.
right now I have 2 and 14, so I'm not expecting anything really.
I think the biggest problem for the Bengals, I think, like Andrew mentioned, is that even with Joe Burrow and he is to play to that capacity, his receiver core is looking relatively weak. I heard that AJ Green was considering trading, and I'm actually unsure of. I think John Ross.
Hey guys, we just have 1 second, guys. There's a bit of a technical difficulty right now.
All right, Sam Rosen joining you back from our technical difficulties. We've got Lucas on the other end of the line here. He's got some thoughts on the Steelers. Lucas, what do you have to say?
Yeah, hold on. Let me run through my Steelers schedule, and you guys just tell me when.
What was
Who's that, Lucas?
Jesus.
Some interesting content you watching there, bud.
I think there's a background of your guys' audio feed. Nevertheless,
Oh,
Really?
I got the Giants taking Pittsburgh at home. I got Denver taking Pittsburgh. Texans take Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh beats Tennessee.
you have the Giants beating Pittsburgh.
Philly beats Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh beats Cleveland. Baltimore beats Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh beats Dallas, my own team. Pittsburgh beats Cincinnati. Jags beat Pittsburgh. Baltimore takes Pittsburgh for the second time. At home, Pittsburgh takes the Redskins. Lose to the Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo. Lose.
What does that leave the record at?
They beat Pittsburgh.
It's the Bills, not the Buffaloes. Yeah.
That equals my statistics.
Buffaloes.
Well,
Uh,
I think I actually had the Giants beating Pittsburgh in that first game, just because Ben Roethlisberger coming back first game of the season might be a bit tough. However, I do have Pittsburgh upsetting Dallas at home. I have Pittsburgh upsetting Baltimore at home.
Right.
And I think those are 2 games that are going to be very influential on their season and ultimately get them into the number 2 seed. I mean, you're forgetting that they still have Ben Roethlisberger, who I believe still has a few good years in him. They have Juju Smith-Schuster. Oh my God.
Schuster.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam.
Yeah.
They just acquired Eric Ebron, who I think is a very
That's true.
good catching tight end, and they still have a strong defense with T.J. Watt leading them with also Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick. So I think it's going to be an interesting season, but I still put a lot more on Pittsburgh than I would on Cleveland, just because of the quarterbacks and the experience to have.
Yeah. So we want to move on to the.
I think, seeing as I'm the host here, I think we move on to the NFC. Might as well, bounce it around, keep the viewers entertained.
We can
Yeah.
discuss-
Yeah. So why don't we start with the NFC North? Anybody have thoughts on that?
Yes.
I can start. Andrew, go for it.
You go, Carson. You go first.
Okay. So this one is kind of a lackluster division for me. There's no breakout teams. I just have the Vikings taking it at 11-5. I had the Packers going 8-8, which is a little biased considering that the Niners destroyed the Packers both times we played them last year. So I really think they're overrated. That just might just be in those situations, but from what I've seen, they're not as good at a team as people think. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they did better than that or took the division themselves. Then I have the Lions going 5-11. I think the Lions are a better team than that, but I think their schedule just lined up, for me at least, where they lost a lot of their games. And then I have the Bears coming in last, 13-3. I just don't think they'll have competition at quarterback.
It's
Like they
impressive to
might
have
switch
the Bears
quarterbacks.
behind the Lions.
Yeah, well, I think for me, I had this as one of the most even and competitive divisions, I would say. No team really took it uh like by a crazy margin like Baltimore did in the AFC North, but I had Green Bay 11-5 taking number 3 seed, Minnesota also 11-5 taking the 7th seed, but losing in a very influential game against Green Bay, giving Green Bay the number 1 seed in the North. I also had Chicago at 9-7. I think Foles is going to become the starting QB, and I think he's going to give them a very good chance of making it to the playoffs, but they're going to miss out at the very end of the season. And I have Detroit at 4-12. Honestly, I would like to give them more games than that, but I just don't think that they're going to be anything special. They have a decent quarterback that is overrated, in my opinion, and they have a strong defense, but I just don't think they're going to put it all together and really have a great season. I think there's always some issue with Detroit. Every year, it seems like they might be a playoff contender and they have something go wrong for them, or they just don't perform to the level that they should be performing at. And I think it's going to be the same story this year, not performing that well and even having a worse season than last year. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, before we get to you, Lucas, it seems, for me at least personally, this league was the Packers and Vikings, obviously, and then a little bit of contention between the Bears and the Lions. But personally, although I know my predictions aren't in front of me, I definitely had the Lions losing the league by a relatively large margin. So I certainly want to hear later about how you have the Bears losing, Carson. But let's hop over to Lucas.
Yeah, so give me 1 second here. But I actually had quite a different take than you guys in terms of the NFC North. I've got Chicago leading the division at 10-6. A hot take. You heard it here first. Chicago takes it 10-6. Green Bay 6-10. Minnesota 6-10, and Detroit 3-13. I think I agree that Detroit's a very weak team, and I don't think they'll ever get it together, at least not for another decade.
Yeah.
Minnesota's never really been that strong ever since about 2 years ago. And Green Bay is still a terribly weak team without a true head coach, and Aaron Rodgers just looks worse and worse. I mean, I'd say Aaron Rodgers is far below the level Tom Brady's gone down to. And Chicago, on the other hand, I see them as not really a sleeper team. I'm surprised you guys have them in 3rd or 4th place even, but that's your call.
Well, it's interesting to me that you have them as first. I think what might be even more interesting is who you think will be at the helm for them.
For who?
For Chicago, who do you think is going to be their quarterback?
I mean, I'd have to say,
I have to say, Nick Foles.
yeah, Trubisky. Trubisky, look, he had a poor season, but that doesn't take away from his potential. He's a strong quarterback, and I think he's been kind of joked about to the point where his true ability is ignored, kind of like Dak Prescott about a year ago. I think he's in the – I don't want to say the top half, but he's a top 20 NFL quarterback for me. But
Really?
whichever way.
I think he's one of the quarterbacks that's on the chopping blocks. Like, if he has a few bad games, he's going to be out of there.
I think this season is very important. I think the NFC North this is an important season for them. While it might not be a super influential division themselves, I mean it's Zimmer's last year of his contract for the Vikings, right? So it could be a monumental change for them, which we'll see is necessary or not as the season persists. Again with Trubisky, right? Especially, I mean he has certainly not had his breakout season yet. And like you said, Andrew, he's on the chopping block. So this season is really an influential year, where I'd say the top three teams. I mean, we could see, does Aaron Rodgers regress even further than he has in the recent couple of years, and the Lions are just irrelevant. So
Well, I think if you look at his stats, he had a very good season in 2018. But I think that's
Mitch,
also
talking about Mitch.
yeah, Mitch Trubisky. I think that is partially because of the addition of Khalil Mack and just the surprise that the Chicago Bears were were a team in contention. I think no one was really expecting them to be where they were at. Wasn't it like I forget what they ended up that season, but they had a very strong record, and Trubisky had a great season. But last season, when teams started to figure them out more, I mean, Trubisky threw 7 touchdowns all of last season and 7 interceptions. Like, the man could not get the ball down the field. He couldn't throw more than 20 yards, and I think that's a huge issue. And I don't believe in his ability. And I think Foles is a very strong quarterback and will be eager to take his spot. So I think this is sort of going to be like a situation that we had last year in Tennessee with Mariota and Tannehill. I think Mariota is sort of the same type of quarterback as Trubisky is, has a decent arm, can run the ball very well, but just not talented enough to be a starter in the league. I think,
Bears were 8-8 last season, 4-4 on the road, 4-4 on them.
yeah. But, I mean, Trubisky lost many games for them, especially at the end of the game. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I think with Foles, they'll definitely be a team to look out for, and they actually are one of my sleepers because of Nick Foles. But I don't believe in Trubisky one bit.
Anybody have any other outstanding thoughts, or you want to move over to the AFC South?
No, we can move over to the AFC South, and if you guys don't mind, we can go a little
No.
quick division because it's getting pretty cold out here, and I can't do them inside. So
Yeah, I mean, if you want, we could just skip over to the playoffs. I think
Let's just do a quicker overview. We don't have to go into depth.
Yeah,
And
we don't have to-
just list out your rankings, and then we'll maybe talk about one team in contention. And just go
Why
from
don't
there.
we just go to like mentioning who we have going into the playoffs, like
Yeah,
leading their who's going to lead the divisions? Like, who do you guys have coming out?
Sure.
The AFC and the NFC? Sure.
South, I've got Indianapolis. Anyone
Yep.
else?
No,
wait. So, did you ask if someone was disagreeing?
disagreed. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I have the Texans coming in as the number 3 seed. They have the same record as Indianapolis, but I have them winning the division. As I was saying earlier, I think Will Fuller is going to be the outstanding player for them. And I know they made some really bad trades, but I think they're still a solid team. They have a great QB.
I think that's interesting because I have the Texans coming out with the 4th overall seed at 10-6. Then I have Tennessee, and I have Indianapolis missing out barely at 7-9.
All right. Let's head over to the NFC South.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first here with I got New Orleans coming out with the number 1 overall seed, 13-3, and Tampa Bay right behind them, 12-4. Just New Orleans will beat Tampa Bay away, so that's why they get the number 1 seed.
Any disagreements?
This is an interesting one for me because I have 3 teams making the playoffs. I have the Saints taking the division and the Bucks coming in second, both of them going 13-3. And then I have the Panthers, which is my biggest sleeper team, taking the 7th overall seed in the NFC. I'm at 11-5, and I think they have a solid team that's been overlooked and really is going to improve with Teddy Bridgewater now. So I guess we'll see next year, but I have them coming in to the playoffs as well.
Luis?
Yeah, I have the same standings, but I have Carolina at 7-9 and Atlanta at 6-10. But If you consider them a sleeper, I guess that's your call. I just don't see it for them.
What are your records for the Bucks? It's a
3 Saints 14.
14.
Well, I think we should hop over to the AFC East.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
I- The division being pretty strong. At the Buffalo takes the division 11-5. New England 10-6. They're a sleeper team if you consider them a sleeper team. Miami 8-8 and the Jets 2-14.
yeah,
Any
so
disagreements?
Mhm.
I had New England at 12-4, taking the number 3 overall seed. Buffalo with the same record, 12-4, taking the 5th seed. I think that's going to be very fun to watch, Buffalo versus New England. I think the addition of Cam Newton is going to help the Patriots because of the fact that they don't have a strong receiving core, so they're going to rely heavily on the running game. I think they'll just beat out Buffalo. Then I have New York Jets and Miami coming in both 3-12. Think they still need a couple more years of rebuilding.
This might be a surprise to you guys, but I have the Dolphins winning the division, and I want to say that the last game last year, their last game against the Patriots, they won when the Patriots still had Tom Brady, and I think they are going to be a successful team with Tua. They had a great draft. I think they're going to take the division. The Patriots coming in next at 8-8, but missing the playoffs. Then the Bills, and then the Jets. And I know the Bills were a good team last year, but just probably because of their record, from what I saw, I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs or succeed that much.
They do have quite a tough schedule, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to think they did have the addition of Stephon Diggs, and I think that's going to put them over the top and help them claim a playoff spot.
They might.
All
We'll
right,
see. Over to the NFC East then.
league now, the NFC East has the strongest team in the world. Biggest
The
team.
Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry, the Washington Redskins.
Dallas Cowboys, yeah, the greatest team in football history. But unfortunately for me this year, they're coming in second, not making the playoffs, going 8-8. Philly takes the division, a very strong team, 12-4, because I'm not feeling it this year for my Cowboys. Giants 4-12.
Has never ever been said before by a Cowboys fan.
True.
If you think about it,
It could be a turning point.
we think we're gonna win the Super Bowl every year, so maybe if for once I think we're not gonna win it. If I settle for 8-8, we'll go 16-0. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
With the Cowboys, you never know. I mean, if we went 16-0, won every single game, and then lost the Super Bowl 40-0, it wouldn't surprise me. So we can move on. What about you guys?
I have the Cowboys at a fantastic 8-8, but beating Philadelphia and going to the playoffs. I don't think the Eagles are a great team. They missed out in the draft by not taking Justin Jefferson. They really screwed that up. They don't have great receivers. They have Zach Ertz, which is a good tight end, and they have Carson Wentz, but I don't see them beating that many teams. When I watched their games last year, it just not seemed like they were an effective team. Then I have the Giants coming in after them at 5-11, and then the Redskins, which I think Redskins and the Chargers both I have, and the Jets are 2-14, and then I have the Jaguars 1-15. So Redskins bottom 4 team. I don't think Chase Young will make that much of a difference.
Yeah, so I have actually Dallas, I guess, as one of my sleepers. I don't know if you can really consider them sleepers because they still are the top team in this division, along with Philadelphia, just because it's such a weak division. But I think I have Dallas at 10-6, beating Philadelphia both times, and I have Philadelphia at 8-8. New York and Washington very low, with New York at 4-12 and Washington at 2-14. I think the Eagles, I was very confused, like Carson said, about their draft picks. They have no help for Carson Wentz, and I think Dallas is going to be more motivated. their defense did get very bad, but I think their offense improved a lot, and they have a very strong offensive-minded coach. So I think they're going to get over the hump. I don't think that they're going to do too well in the playoffs, but we'll get to that in a bit.
All right. Move on to the AFC West then.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is easy, though. I think we can blow through this one with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that the Chiefs are going to dominate this division.
16-0 because I've got them at 15-1. Just wanted to know if anyone.
I have them at 14-12. I think that the Patriots are actually going to upset them. And I also have Buffalo upsetting them on a Thursday night.
You think the Patriots are upsetting them?
Interesting.
Actually, sorry.
have-
You know what? I actually have Kansas City beating the Patriots. It was New Orleans who's going to beat Kansas City.
I have that as an upset, as well as the Broncos, which is a big upset, and the Ravens. And I want to talk about the Broncos.
Yeah.
I have them in the playoffs after Kansas City, of course. But I do think that they are a team to be reckoned with next year. I think they have a young QB who's been overlooked, but will come in strong. And they got great receivers now, great defense. And I think they have a great running back. I'm a little disappointed they got signed Melvin Gordon because I think Philip Lindsay is solid and ever improving. But I think Melvin Gordon might change that up a bit. Hopefully not too much. But I think they're a strong team.
On the greatest division of all time, the NFC West.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most interesting division there is, and definitely the most competitive. I have San Francisco at 12-4, along with Seattle at 12-4. I think that is going to be a great matchup, just like last year. I have Arizona just missing out on the playoffs. I love the team that Arizona has. I just could not have them beating some of these teams. They have a pretty difficult schedule, and since they are in one of the most competitive divisions, it's just tough to put them over there. And I think, surprisingly, the Rams are going to be the worst in the division. I think that teams have figured out how to play them, and last year they sort of got exposed last year. I think it was sort of surprising, but I think it's going to continue into this next season.
I guess I'll go next. Obviously, I have the 49ers taking the division and the NFC with the number 1 seed at 14-2. I think we're going to be even stronger this year. We know our weakness, which is mobile quarterbacks, as we saw and I
Russell Wilson
experienced last year. I have us losing to the Seahawks and the Cardinals on both division games when we're away. Seahawks is always a tough game away, and the Cardinals are a strong team this year. And Seahawks next, making the playoffs 13-3. Then the Cardinals missing the playoffs. And then the Rams, again, as Andrew said, last. I don't think they're good. They released Todd Gurley, who wasn't that good anyways, but I don't see the Rams doing anything special.
All right. I got, just like Dodson, I got Seahawks taking the division at 14-2, Niners 12-4, and the Rams, just like the Arizona's 8-8, but Rams are third in the division. I think that thinking that they're going to be worse than the Cardinals next year is overstating how poorly they'll play in comparison to last season. I think they're still a strong team and definitely a team to fear if you're one of the teams in the NFC West. But I do have them going 2-4 in the division. So,
I think that just to add this, I think the Cardinals are one of my sleepers. I think the addition of D-Hop might fit really well with what they're doing up there, and I think they have a young quarterback that can possibly lead them to the playoffs this year.
I think Kyler Murray, I think he went from being severely underrated to now being slightly overrated. I don't think he's as good as people make him out to be. And you got to look at their schedule. It's not an easy schedule. They got to play teams in the NFC East, which are always tricky. And then they're in the best division in the league themselves, having to play Seattle and the Niners twice. So, I'd like to think of them as a team that can make the playoffs, but I just don't see it happening this
I actually I saw your point and I was thinking about it, but when you look back at last season, they almost upset the 49ers both times they played them. And they even upset Seattle. And now with the addition of D-Hop, what he brings to that team, it's not just his play, but leadership and knowledge. I think it could really put them over the top.
I have them
Cardinal.
I have them missing I have the Panthers taking a wild card spot with the same record as the Cardinals, but I believe the Panthers had beat them. Let me check let's see. Yeah, I have the Panthers taking that playoff spot from the Cardinals, and as I said, they're a sleeper, but I can see the Cardinals taking that spot as well, either way.
Solid.
Playoffs?
Yeah, why don't we go into it?
All right.
I have an idea for this. What if we share our screens and sort of give a photo of or
Only one person can share a screen at a time, Andrew.
yeah, so we'll go in turns. So
The computer's about to die, so I don't really want to overstress it. Do you mind if I just state my Super Bowl prediction really quickly?
yeah, why don't you go ahead?
All right. I've got the Chiefs losing the Super Bowl to the Saints.
Yep.
But if not the
Fair
Saints,
enough.
Seahawks. I don't think the Chiefs are going to win it again like they did last year against the 49ers, if anyone remembers that. You guys remember that? And yeah, but I do see the Seahawks and the Saints being the top contenders. Saints are first seed in the NFC, but I think they'll win the Super Bowl over Kansas City. If anyone wants to disagree or agree quickly before I go, because I'm about to die.
You know, I think the Saints are choke city now. I mean,
Yeah.
every time they get close, something happens, and I think that I think the Saints are actually gonna get far again, but lose to the Bucks.
I have that too. Yeah.
But yeah, I think having the Saints in the Super Bowl is not a terrible idea. I just don't think it's
Yeah, I see what you mean with them choking, but it's got to work eventually. The only team that's doomed forever are the Browns and the Lions.
Well,
I think the Saints will get it eventually.
Where do
I think
you
this-
have the 49ers going?
Either they'll. Well, I had to redo it this morning, so I don't have the full thing. But I believe that I had them either losing to. It was either going to be them losing to the Saints, or if the Seahawks made it to the NFC Championship, it was the Seahawks beating the Saints. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Sure.
I
Well,
know yesterday was
Mhm.
mentioning a Seahawks Niners NFC Championship, which would be really interesting. I'd like to see that myself.
Well, thanks for your input. It's good talking, man.
Yeah, I'll see y'all
All
around.
right. Yeah.
Thank you,
See you, bud.
Sam Rosen.
It's been a pleasure.
Comment.
Are you coming Friday? Okay. Okay.
All right, Andrew, you want to give us your prediction?
Yeah. So I had you know what, I'll share my screen for this. I think it might make it a bit easier. So I had I'll skip the wild card. You can just check it out for yourself. But I had Chiefs versus Bills. I think there's no doubt that the Chiefs will take over the Bills pretty easily. I think Ravens and Patriots will meet. I think I'm very biased toward this, and I had a very, very hot take on this year's playoffs, but I have the Patriots upsetting the Ravens. I think Belichick has lost to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens once already, and I think they're going to lose again during the season. So I think after those two losses, Belichick will gain an understanding of what they're doing and find a game plan to upset the Ravens. It's going to be a close game, but with the help of Cam Newton and his style of play, running the football, they're going to play the same game as the Ravens and ultimately beat them out with the management of the clock. Then I had the 49ers versus the Bucks. I think Tom Brady with the weapons is going to be something to mess with. And I think it's going to be a very interesting game. The old versus the young, Garoppolo versus Tom Brady, a matchup that I think a lot of people would like to see. And I think Tom Brady, father time, is going to take this one with his knowledge and his help with the weapons. Then I have Seahawks versus Saints. I think Seahawks, always a strong team, always a team that are interesting to watch. But the Saints are just overpowered, really strong. Drew Brees, you can trust them up until, when it matters most in that conference championship game where, they choke. But then I have Chiefs versus Patriots. Like I said, hot take, Patriots beating the Chiefs. Time management. Patriots defense has played well against Mahomes, keeping them to 0 points one time. And I think it was the conference championship in the first 2 quarters. It's never possible to keep the Chiefs to a low score, but I think Patriots will score enough and keep the Chiefs off the board enough to win the game. Maybe a field goal at the very end of the game to win it for them. Then I have the Saints, Buccaneers. I have Tom Brady yet again. I love that man. Beating the Saints. Gronk, Tom Brady hooking up, game-winning touchdown. I can already see it. And for the Super Bowl, Patriots versus Buccaneers, a matchup that I feel like everyone would want to see. No one really hates the Patriots anymore, and I don't think anyone hates the Buccaneers as much because of the split between Belichick and Tom Brady. I think it will be the matchup that everyone's talking about. Who's better, Tom Brady, Belichick? Players always beat out coaches. Even though I love Belichick and what he's done, players have to go on the field and win it. I think Buccaneers will become the Super Bowl champions. Gronk and Tom Brady will have yet another Super Bowl win together, and Florida will be happy campers in February.
All right. I have to disagree strongly with most everything you said there, Andrew. Let me share screen. Found the button. All right. Oh, it says
Brilliant.
you have to
I'm
click a new
doing
one.
it right now. Can you do it?
Yep. Host disabled attendee share screen. Go to, I think, what is it?
All right,
Participants, maybe?
All right, guys. So we're back with Carson's take.
Okay. So I'm quite disappointed in Andrew's predictions. I think it's just a sad and disappointed fan longing for the times of the past when the Patriots can actually win games in the playoffs. I don't have them even making the playoffs here. And I have the Bucs losing to the Saints early. But I'll start off from the top as he did too. Here are my 2 sleeper teams. Unexpected Broncos and Dolphins matchup in the wild card. No, that's not the wild card. Broncos take that. Then I have the Ravens going, and they take it all the way to the Super Bowl. I have the Texans, I said earlier, as a strong team, but I think they'll lose to the Ravens. They just don't have the same receiving core, obviously, as they did last year. As for the NFC, Panthers, my other sleeper team, make it to the first round, but lose to the Saints. Saints are a strong team, undoubtedly. Again, they do choke, but I have them beating the Panthers. I don't think that'll be too difficult for them. Cowboys make it, but quickly lose to the Buccaneers. It's just a pattern I've noticed in the Cowboys' playoffs appearance, just quick losses either in the first or second rounds. That'll not be surprising. I have the Seahawks and Vikings coming in. Seahawks win. As a Niners fan, I can always see the Seahawks winning. It's just something that I've experienced a lot and is unfortunately very realistic chance for me. However, I have us beating the Seahawks, which will be a fun game. Saints beating the Buccaneers. Niners beating the Saints, taking it to the Super Bowl, and taking our revenge and beating the Ravens. And I think, honestly, Saints, as you see here in the championship round, those are the 4 teams that I believe are the powerhouses next year. The Bucs are close, but they haven't proven themselves yet. I think those 4 teams are the teams to beat, and I think they will all make it into the championships. But the 49ers, being the best team in history of the NFL, will take the Super Bowl championships.
I feel like your predictions are too easy. Like, this is very basic in my opinion, because we can all say that these teams are going to make it, but there's always going to be a team that is going to be the sleeper, like the Tennessee Titans last year. And I think that might be the Patriots. I mean, I am a Patriots fan, and I might be overhyping this, but just think about how sensational Cam Newton will be with the best coach to ever do it, Bill Belichick. They always seem to figure out a way to win games. They always have a good strategy. And you have a former MVP who is motivated, probably the most motivated he's ever been, because of the fact that teams gave up on him. No one wanted him. And that's a feeling that drives you even more. And I think teams really did the Patriots a service by passing on him. I think I have to agree with you that the 49ers could make it to the Super Bowl. That's definitely a possibility. But I think this is just something that always happens. There's always a team that will surprise people. And by putting the top 4 powerhouses in the playoffs, it's just something that I don't believe will happen, because history shows that the top teams don't always make it, and there's always a team that will slip into the final playoff games.
That's fair enough. I can't see the Niners or Chiefs not making it to the championship round, especially because I have both of them as my number 1 seeds. But what I could see, if you want me to mix it up a little bit, I can see the Texans beating the Ravens. And honestly, I would like to see that. Or even better, the Ravens losing to the Steelers, just because it's so funny that Lamar Jackson still has no playoff wins. And like they're a team that has choked before, and the Titans just totally blew them away. I don't have them in the playoffs this year, but if they were, then I would have them beating the Ravens. And then on the Buccaneers side, again, they're not there because I said they were unproven. I don't know how Tom Brady will work on this new team. If Gronk will be the same tight end he used to be. But I could say confidently that if halfway through the season and I see the Buccaneers doing well, I would have them beating the Saints there, just because the Saints are just, they're the Saints. They lose those games. So
Yeah.
I could see those are my interesting predictions.
I think that what's interesting is that you brought up the point that the Ravens have, especially Lamar Jackson, have had 2 years in a row where they had early playoff exits. And I think that sort of brings us to where we can sort of talk about who you guys have as your top 3 quarterbacks for the season. Because Lamar was last year's MVP, but I don't know if you guys have him up there in the top quarterbacks in the league.
I do have him. Let me look at. Oh, not now. Sorry, guys. My predictions. Nope.
How about we start with Sam? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Guys, I'm going to be entirely honest with you right now. I've been spaced out for the last 30 minutes, so if you'd be so kind as to repeat the last question, I'd be more than happy to give you my answer. Top 3 quarterbacks in the league?
Next year.
I think Mahomes has to be up there. I'm not going to put him in any particular order. Mahomes obviously has to be up there. I mean, he's got a $500 million contract. He better be one of the best quarterbacks in the league next year. And if he isn't, I'll be pretty damn disappointed.
Oh, I need to sorry.
Tom Brady is not in my top 3. I think that he could have a really good season. He's got a lot of good targets he didn't have last year, so I think he could have an outstanding season. But I think his ranking in my top 3 would be extremely dependent on how he does. I think upon the first couple of games, we'll see. I mean, even with just the preseason, I think we'll be able to see how good of a season it'll be for him. a connection between him and his receivers. Probably Lamar Jackson for sure. Lamar Jackson is we saw him dominate this year, right? He's a versatile player. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He's pretty much a multi-threat, right? Triple threat. Yeah, I mean, again, the Baltimore Ravens are going to be – I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl. I don't think they're getting to the Super Bowl. But they have a chance to go somewhere like they did this year. I don't think they'll have as good a season as they did last season. But I think Lamar Jackson will continue to be carrying his team to an extent. The third position is kind of tough. Yeah, I mean – I don't know who I'd give the third position to.
Andrew, you want to?
Yeah.
give us
Yeah.
your-
I'll go. So for my number one quarterback in the league, you have to go with Patrick Mahomes. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I think he's by far the most talented player in the league. And that's why he got the $500 million contract. I think for number 2 and number 3 quarterback in the league, I think if we starting right now, I think it would be something like Lamar Jackson, and then I think the number 3 spot right now is a bit controversial. I think maybe you could put Watson in there. You could also put possibly Russell Wilson. I think Jimmy G's lower, but I think at the end of the season, we will be saying that the number 2 best quarterback is Russell Wilson. I think he's going to repeat what he did last year and ultimately have a great season with the Seahawks. And I think for the third best quarterback, I think we will be saying that it is split between Lamar Jackson and Watson. I think Watson without D-Hop will still produce, and I think that's why he will become one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think people will realize that it's not just the players around him that makes him good. He himself can make plays and make people around him better. And I think that Lamar Jackson is going to continue with his running scheme. You know, no defensive scheme can really contain Lamar Jackson and his jukes and his speed. So that will be something very interesting to see.
Yeah, before Carson, you go. I think I'd have to put Watson. I was thinking between Watson and Wilson, but honestly, I mean, Watson had pretty much single-handed victories against the Chiefs and the Patriots last season. And I think if he can continue with his explosiveness, even without D-Hop, I think he stands to actually be a pretty good quarterback. It's certainly top 3. And like you said, definitely contention for top 2.
Yeah, and just before Carson goes, I wanted to touch on something that you said, Sam. Sorry, Carson, but I honestly agree with you. I love Tom Brady, but he's no longer a top 3 quarterback in the league. I think with his weapons, he'll be a strong quarterback, but I think it's tough to put him over the very mobile quarterbacks, the new day quarterbacks that
He's too old.
In today's football, like a mobile quarterback is where the league's going. So I think he definitely has fallen off the top 3 list.
So, Andrew, did you say your end of season predictions would have Russell Wilson as the second QB?
Yes.
Okay. So those are my predictions right now. I have Mahomes, then Wilson, then Jackson. And I think Wilson has by far proven himself more than he needs. As I've seen him.
I feel like that's also a personal point,
apart.
right? I mean, like, you watch Russell Wilson tear apart the Niners.
Let's
maybe it inflates his draft stocks.
Yeah, but I think it's tough to put him over Lamar Jackson, who just won the MVP.
I don't think it's very tough. It's not tough for me. And I think Lamar Jackson will not have as good a year as he had last time. I don't even know if that's possible. That was like he had a great season and he deserved the MVP, but coming into this season, I'm taking Wilson over him. And it is a little bit biased, Sam, but I think it's also
I think it's fair.
seeing that we had the best defense last year and he
Yeah.
still managed to like walk around us. It's
I mean, he also fit
tough
really
to
well
say,
into
but yeah.
to the defensive scheme from the Niners, right? I mean, we saw even against other teams, they were pretty poor in terms of containing a mobile quarterback. But yeah, I mean, there were some very tough Seahawks Niners games that were hard to watch.
We beat him though when it counted, and we took the number
Yep.
1 seed. So, yeah. Are we doing? We're doing running backs or
Why
wide
don't
receivers?
why don't we just do one more with the wide receivers and call it an episode?
All right. I'll start off because like you guys took so long last time. I have DeAndre Hopkins as number 1. As a receiver, maybe not performance-wise because he's on a new team. I don't know how good he'll be on the Cardinals, but I think in terms of talent, he's my top choice. Then I have Tyreek Hill. This is more based off of what he'll do to teams and how important he is to the Kansas City offense. And he can turn a game around, as we've seen. Unfortunately, he can just make those huge plays. He's a touchdown waiting to happen every time the ball is snapped. And then I'll take Julio Jones, also similar to Hopkins, based more on talent. I think the Falcons aren't doing great this year, but I still think he is a amazing receiver and deserves to be in those top 3.
Who were your top 3 again? Sorry, just quick overview.
Quick overview: DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones.
Okay. I'll go next, Andrew. That's great. I am gonna have Michael Thomas as one of my top receivers. I believe he had one of the highest yards per route, and he's a very effective quarterback or receiver. I'm sure he'd be a great quarterback too, though. Come on. Yeah, I mean, I have to stick with Julio Jones and Tyreek Hill, but the wide receivers are a pretty contended spot, granted the fact that there's more of them. I think AJ Green he's not top 3. Not getting me wrong, AJ Green is not top 3, but he's a pretty good quarterback. Jesus Christ, he's a pretty good wide receiver, even with his current situation. I mean, he has Joe Burrow throwing to him this year, so that could actually make him a lot better. But again, I think it depends whether or not he gets traded. You know, if you go to a team that has a miserable quarterback, which could lead to that happening. I don't know. I think AJ Green is a sleeper. Not that we're doing that, but
Well, I think that's a great point. For me, I have Michael Thomas as number 1. I think his sheer production last year has to put him at the number 1 wide receiver. He still has Drew Brees throwing him the rock, and I don't see how you could go against him. I think he's truly become the best wide receiver in football. He can do it all: deep routes, slants, everything. And he's become a dominant force in the league. I think with my number 2 wide receiver, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's going to become a focal point of the Cardinals. Not that he wasn't already with the Texans, but I think he's going to be motivated. He was coming off a no-drop season in 2018, and compared to his 2018 stats, he struggled a tiny bit in 2019. But I think the 2020 season will be somewhat of a comeback. I don't really think you can consider it a comeback, but I think it's going to be one of his best seasons. And finally, for my 3rd overall wide receiver, you know what? I'm going to go with Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans with Tom Brady is going to be a great hookup. I think that they're going to do great things in Tampa Bay. You could definitely put Tyreek Hill there, and you can definitely put Julio Jones. But personally, I think the Falcons are going to have a poor season this year, and I don't think Julio Jones is going to get all those stats that he's been prone to get. And I think Mike Evans is going to surprise the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with Tom Brady, Mike Evans stands to. I mean, we already knew he was a good receiver. Didn't say quarterback this time.
Yeah.
Impressive, but especially with Tom Brady throwing to him, he has a lot of potential and a lot to gain come this season.
I don't know. I'm not on the Mike Evans wagon. I just think
Really, I mean, Tom Brady can't run the ball because he's like 78 years old, and he has to throw to
then
somebody.
there's Chris Godwin, who was better than Mike Evans was last year, and you have Gronk coming in taking more catches. So
Actually,
unless
two
that,
very valid points.
That
I
brings
don't
up a
think he's
valid.
coming up in the top 5, not the top 8.
Maybe Gronk retires again and Godwin gets injured. Boom, Mike Evans, top 3 receiver.
Well,
You're ready
another
first.
another player that I have as somewhat of a sleeper for that number 3 pick is Stephon Diggs. I think
Stephon Diggs is an absolute behemoth, but he's not going to be top 3.
he's coming off of a really strong season last year where he was the number 2 wide receiver. He's
I
always
feel like
been,
you need to do top 5 for receivers.
he's always been number 2 to Adam Thielen, and now going to Buffalo, he's gonna be Josh Allen's main target up in Buffalo. I think they're gonna do.
Josh Allen's not that great of a thrower. He can run the ball, but he's got problems, and he might fix them.
He's never had a wide receiver like Stephon Diggs, and now Stephon Diggs is gonna be happy. He's gonna be the number 1 wide receiver, and I think they're gonna do great things. Well, I think
Gross.
it's a good way to end the episode.
Yes, it's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.
Has been.
Thanks for joining us on this like 2.5-hour episode of off season. Sean has been biking dark into the night of 10:08.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's not lost. We should probably call someone if we're being
I
honest.
like it, Andrew.
But
Well,
I look at that. The boys take on glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.